All right, we're rolling into December, and this is Brian Kenny with Kent Meehee, and we're coming to you for our episode of the And One podcast, where we're going to be talking about what it's like to be a young official and some advice that we can get about being a young official and what it takes to get to places that you want to go when you're a younger official. And we need younger officials right now, now more than ever, to help us with all areas of officiating. We're talking about basketball, but in the state of Wisconsin, the volleyball right now is the biggest shortage. All sports are struggling. So we need to develop our talent pipeline. So we're blessed to have McDonald and Cade Murray joining us. All of us are members of the Wisconsin River Officials Association, and a little plug for our association. We're doing some really good things right now. We're virtual, 4 meetings for basketball, and we have our podcast show. We also have a training video, and we use Huddle, so all of our members have access to Huddle. So we have some great tools for young officials and veteran officials alike. So thanks for being with us, Cade and Cole. I know we've all worked games. I've seen Cole, I just saw you yesterday in the Dells, and Kent, you were working the game tonight at Pfizer Forum, and Cade's been out and about working, so all of us are busy. It's awesome.
We were able to either listen or watch the Badgers get a good win tonight too, so that's always nice to cap the weekend off going into the next week of games. So what we'll do for tonight's episode, Cade, we'll start with you and we'll just kind of bounce back and forth. You and Cole and myself included are still relatively young, but we've learned a lot as we've kind of climbed the ladder to where we are right now. So Cade, what's a word of advice or a piece that one of your mentors has given you that's kind of stuck with you as you've grown as an official so far?
You're never as good as you think you are. As crazy as that sounds. There's a lot of, the officiating business is great. You get connections, you have pathways that lead you into other opportunities. Example, Brian with me in track and field. If you're in the school district setting, it creates networking like none other, because believe it or not, a lot of officials are teachers. But with that is also, and what I somewhat dislike about our community of officiating, we were even talking about before the podcast started, is that there can sometimes be a certain level of arrogance among the officiating community. One official thinks they're better than the other, thinks that they deserve to be at state over the other one, or they think they should be on this big conference game over this one. And in reality is, if you have the mindset of you're never as good as you think you are, you're always going to be striving to get somewhere. You're always going to be striving to work at and be better at what you do. I don't have the mentality that I want to be better than Brian or Cole or Kent or anything like that, but I have the mentality of I want to be better at every game. And if I take a step back, because we all have those games where sometimes you don't feel too good or you just don't feel comfortable, whenever you take a step back, always try and take 2 steps forward. And I think that's something that stuck with me through officiating. I've used that in my coaching philosophy. And I think that when I hear that, it helps me understand, I always need to work to get better, whether it's to get that next postseason assignment, college assignment, heck, a high school game, high school conference game, whatever your goals may be. But using that mentality, it drives me to watch film, connect with others, and also help others get better, because that's another thing that I pride myself in doing in the officiating community.
It's interesting you say you're not as good as you think you are, because I remember when I got hired into the WIAC for women's basketball in the late 90s, Mark Braden was the supervisor of officials and one of the greatest men I've ever known in officiating. He gave me opportunity. He said 3 things. You're not as good as you think you are. Your lack of dead ball management, game management is what's going to get you fired. And rule number 3 was you're not as good as you think you are. So it's kind of like the 5 Ds of dodgeball. There were really only 4 Ds, and one of them was repeated. So you're not as good as you think you are showed up twice on the list. And I think that's really impressive that younger officials need to figure that out very quickly. And that's paramount if you want to be successful in this business.
And just never settling. Because like tonight, like you mentioned, Brian, I was able to work a game at Pfizer Forum, which was really cool, but it's a high school game. And, if I start to lean back and feel good about myself, about where, it was a cool experience, but like Cade said, there's always so many things that we can work on, and having that mentality is good to keep pushing yourself to be better each game that you work. Cole, you're on the seat now. He's been patient, so hopefully he's got a good one for us. So same thing, Cole. Give us a quote or something that someone told you as you were growing, and something that stuck with you over the last couple of years.
So I remember when I first started out, there's a guy back in Darlington named Bob Boyle who's been officiating for over 50 years. And I remember one of my first JV games ever was with Bob, and he said, "Cole, you always have to be a sponge. You don't always have to agree with what everybody tells you about officiating, but if you're a sponge, hopefully you can steal everybody's good stuff and hopefully leave out some of the things that they don't do so well." So that's what I've tried to do. I'll listen to almost anybody about what they have to say about a play or how they would handle a situation. At the end of the day, I may or may not take that advice. But I think ultimately it comes down to being humble enough to know that, the way I might handle everything isn't necessarily the best way. And we can learn from each other a lot. I think something I try to do is every game I work with someone new, I try to learn something from them to make myself a little better. So I thought, that was one of the first things I ever got taught, but it stuck with me all this time. Like you said, Ken, it's that continuous growth mindset. I think it's so important.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can agree too, Cole. The clinics that we've gone to with older and more experienced officials, like how many times have they said that, yeah, I forgot about this thing, or like, yeah, this is a really good point that was made that I'm going to take with me. So even those guys are still looking for things that they can implement in their own games and things that they can just keep improving on.
Absolutely. I think it's really refreshing to see people who've been doing this for 30, 40 years and they still go to a camp every summer because they're not satisfied. They would like to learn something new. And, the rule book, there's so many little intricacies that, are confusing and we forget. So, the more refreshers we get, the better.
Brian, how have you seen that? I mean, you work your own camp and you see and work with a lot more officials than we do. How important is it to be a sponge and take everything in as you can?
I think it's crucial. I mean, along with what Cade said about, the concept of you're not as good as you think you are. If you truly believe that, then you're almost destined to be a sponge, because then you're always learning. I work with I really pride myself in working with a lot of younger officials, and I always learn something from them about youthfulness and just the whole concept of they bring good ideas and innovation that I might not think about in officiating. I mean, look at our association. We have a good balance of, veterans that are in leadership, but we also have a lot of young people that are balancing us out. So I think that's really important. You can't be a lifetime U2. The world doesn't need U2s to enter the game and 2022 and still be a U2 in 2026. You have to get better. And that's why it's so important to, like Cole said, to be a sponge. I think that's a really good analogy. You guys are batting 1,000. So I got a question for Cade. Cade, we have points of emphasis, obviously, in all of our sports, and you do football and basketball, as does Cole. What are some of your points of emphasis or non-negotiables when you're officiating?
You're talking like philosophy wise, or
just anything. Like when you go to a game and you're, getting ready to referee, or what are some things that are going to come up in conversations when people talk to you, whether it's a pregame or on the floor or in a post game?
I think something that we always, especially in the season, that we talk about is the points of emphasis of that the NFHS has given us. Just in my opinion, I felt that like we've been given very little of those. Like this year, really the only one that we got was illegal contact. Yes, uniform stuff is important, but when we're talking about things that really truly impact the game, illegal contact is one. So then, we might jump off of that or talk about that. But I think another thing that we do that's really important, that we do for at least our high school games is, we do scouting reports. And as stupid as it sounds to some, they're incredibly, incredibly helpful when you are going into a game that is of a bigger magnitude, or the teams that you have not seen before, have not seen yet that season. Being able to talk about tendencies that either team may have, whether it's you've officiated a game of theirs or you've watched 5 minutes on YouTube, I think is extremely important, and something that in any game of any magnitude, whether it's my normal crew or not, I'm going to have a scouting report. And if they think that I'm over the top, then good for them, I guess. I don't really care what they think when it comes to that stuff. I think another thing is just the basic communication stuff. You'd be surprised how many times, Cole can attest to it in football, but in basketball with my normal guys that I work with, how much I stress about, hey, let's make sure we point to where we're going to put the ball in play next, or after we finish a conversation and before we start a conversation, we say whose ball it is and where it's at and the status of whether it's a spot or not. It's things like that. Like communication, your play calling is your play calling, but your communication, your ability to work with other people is what's going to make you successful in this business. And whether or not, I like the officials that I'm working with, or I don't like the officials that I'm working with, I like them for that game because we need to work together to be successful, as officials. That's just the nature of it. It's the nature of what we do. And so if we can control things that we can control, and that is by having good pre-games and stuff like that, then we're going to be in good shape. I've been a part of games, especially when I first started out. I mean, I'm no veteran by any means, but year one, when I really had no idea what I was doing, I would go into a couple games and just not pregame. And guess what? They ended up being disasters because we didn't communicate properly, or we didn't, do things that you would see normal crews do that do pregame. So it's those things like that, controlling what we can control, being prepared is some of the biggest things. Even before the game, before we're there on site, there's communication at least 4 or 5 days in advance. Hey, I'm working with you, whether I know you or not, and this is when I'm going to be there, and I'm going to send an email to the AD confirming that we're going to be there, and things like that, things that keep us in ready working order. That officiating mindset that, all of us have, that we're in that business.
Well, you think about, you made mention, Cade, about track and field, and that your timing and a certain someone on this call helped you, make connections with track and field timing. And that was an easy one for me because I knew you would be good at it. And you think about track and field and how many things can go wrong if you don't do a pregame, like your bib numbers, making sure your camera, there's gas in the generator. I mean, all those little things that you have to do before you referee. I'll give you a good example. And I don't mind saying this one, and our whole audience is going to hear this. Saturday, I worked a college game at Edgewood College, and I had a lot on my mind Saturday because we had games at the Jag. I wanted to make sure I got everything ready. And for whatever reason, I forgot to put my women's shirt in my bag. I had everything else in there. I had my jacket, and Adam Swanpool had 2 shirts. And I've never done that before. Never forgotten my uniform for a college game. I've done it for high school sports. I've forgotten a piece of equipment, but that was kind of an important one, and Adam bailed me out. So, yeah, stuff happens. You get distracted. It's cool. Same version of that question for you. You might have some different things than what, Cade had to say.
Sure. So I always start off with, like, whenever I'm in my meeting, like, we're all really happy to be here. We want to be here because we love this game, and we want to offer the players like the ability to play. So I always start with that. I always think it's really important that we work hard and we hustle and we look like we know what we're doing. Because if we don't have good position, we're not going to be able to make correct calls. I also think, just like Cade said, communication is super important. I always tell the players in the pregame meeting that, as long as you address us in a respectful manner, if you have a question, we'll get you the answer. You may not like it, but we'll tell you what we saw and why we called the foul. And then lastly, I think have fun. I mean, like, kind of circling back, like, we're here because we love this game. We don't necessarily have to be working 4 nights a week, being away from our families. I don't think we would be doing that if we didn't love it. So I think remembering to have fun, even when the crowd is on you and the coaches are, kind of getting in your ear, is so important, because you kind of got to take yourself back to why you're there in the first place. So I think everything Cade said is so also really true, but those are kind of my own spin on things.
It's kind of interesting because I got to see Cole and 2 younger officials work Saturday night at the Jag. I did the shot clock, and I think I almost wish all officials that are aspiring to be at a high level could work the table in some capacity. Because when you work the shot clock, you know when there's a foul, you have a moment in time where you're not busy, because you're just gonna you're either gonna reset it or you're gonna leave it where it is. Those are your 2 options. So I get to watch the officials report fouls. And I'm very critical of table presentation because it tells me a lot. And all 3 of those younger officials had extremely good mechanics. And when somebody has good mechanics, it's just like when they have a clean car. The rest of their life is probably clean. Not always, but you can make a lot of hypotheses when you see an official's mechanics that lends itself to the rest of their game is probably going to be pretty good. And they ran like gazelles. There was never a player that could tell them, you're not running fast enough. And there was tons of options for all 3 of them to be good communicators. And I watched that happen. So it's pretty impressive when you can see younger officials rising up instead of falling to pieces, because they've taken things in stride. Cole, you said you work JV basketball. Some officials now, they come into the game and they can bypass that because we need them so desperately.
I did that.
Yeah, that's right. You did, Cade. You kind of went right into 3-person.
Mm-hmm.
And, you guys are a tale of 2 cities, but you're still both doing great things. And a lot of officials now, we can just take them away from JV and put them on varsity games.
Which isn't necessarily always the best thing, I guess. I don't know.
No, it's not.
I'm glad that I got to do that, but I don't know if I agree if that should be the way it's done, but
it's our reality right now, right?
It is.
Well, guys, do you have any other I've got one more but I'll save that word of wisdom for when we wrap up. Cade or Cole, do you guys have any other like words of wisdom that you've gotten that's kind of affected you and helped you in certain situations at all?
I mean, I get words of wisdom, I feel like every week. Like I'm working with someone and they say something and I'm like, damn, you're probably right. I'm always willing to be criticized and everything like that, but something that I want to, that's helped me and that I want to relay to people who maybe are trying to help other younger officials. Yes, there's bad, but there's also good. We need to do, I really do think that there are some people out there who have good intentions of trying to help young officials, but never give them good things, only bad things. And when you're trying to teach someone and you're trying to gain their trust or mentor someone, they need to know what they're doing good. I understand that I'm not going to know what I'm doing bad until someone tells me and corrects me, but I'm also not going to know what I'm doing good if no one tells me. It's okay to give compliments to other officials, believe it or not. That's something that I think that, and it's not referring to any one person or group of people or anyone that I've met or experienced with over time. But like just yesterday, working a college game, I'm still very new in the college scene, and my partners came in and they addressed and they said, first off, great get on the charge. You saved us. And then they came with, okay, now here's some things that you can probably improve on. I'm like, that's great. Thank you for telling me that stuff. But if we consistently just tell one official, you're not doing this right, you're not doing this right, you're not doing this right, they're not going to want to do it anymore or seek for you for feedback. It's a two-way street for sure. You want to help people, but you also want to make sure that the person who you're trying to help is receiving that good feedback. And that's what's helped me, is that I did have people who gave me good feedback. And that's what's kind of propelled me to keep going.
And you have one of the most, Cade, you have one of the most difficult jobs, in my opinion, in our association. And that's making those training tapes, because they're so highly scrutinized with, if you put too many opinions in there, or say the wrong things, it lends itself to there not being, an unbiased evaluation of a play. And that's a hard thing to do. And I'm sure that doing that and getting better at it every time you do it probably lends itself to making you a better referee.
Well, it certainly does in an aspect, but also, I make those with the reality that I know that there's someone who's going to scroll through Facebook, see it, watch it, and be like, he's wrong. He's not right. He shouldn't be helping other people. He shouldn't be giving words of wisdom when he's so young. And to that I say, okay, turn it off. You don't have to listen to mine. You're not listening to it for WIA credit. You're not doing anything. No one is forcing you to do that. So for those people that want to go out there and want to criticize, me or anybody, I mean, if they want to go and criticize the people on the Minnesota side that do that stuff, or, Penny Davis from the NCAA, want to criticize her for her videos, whatever, who cares? I mean, you're never going, no one play, you could post a play on YouTube and put a poll of someone blatantly hitting someone on the arm on a shot, and you're not going to get 100% people agree that it's a foul. You're just not going to. And that's just the reality that we're in. And when you're in a position like me where you make those videos, or if you're anyone looking to get feedback, you just have to understand that no one's ever going to always agree with you, but it's valuing the people's opinions and taking the feedback and doing, either good things with it or nothing with it, depending on how you look at it, is the best route to go. That's, you have to have thick skin in this business, from players, coaches, and people who, think that they are always right. So
it's just like the old story of this porridge is too cold, this porridge is too hot. Finding the porridge that's warm enough. I could have probably been scrutinized numerous times for, I put too many young officials on a college game. Okay. I put too many old officials on a college game. It's like the porridge is too cold or it's too hot. This is a tough business. But I think if we take some of the things that you guys both have said, Cole, you've said some things that have made me think about this is a business of joy. You have to have a good time doing this job or you're going to be miserable. And it's also a business where when you're younger and you're good at what you're doing, people might not always appreciate that. And we have to find the good in the game. And Cade, you're right. There needs to be affirmation as much as there is scrutiny. And that's the same thing with coaching. You can't always yell at your athletes.
Mm-hmm.
You have to love them and affirm them. And, you three have, I'm proud of all three of you. You guys have done great in your own respect, and three geniuses from the same community. I mean, how do you do that?
Rollbirds.
Kent's from Darlington, Cade's from Darlington, and Cole's from Darlington. Three geniuses from the same place where there's no stop sign. The whole county. Stop lights. Sorry, there's stop signs. No lights.
Easy.
No
Or
stop
roundabouts.
lights.
We don't want.
Stop lights. Pretty impressive. So
I think going back on that, Brian, and Cade and Cole, I think would agree with me on this, is we are very lucky to receive the mentorship that we have from people, including the mentorship that you've given us and the number of times that you've reached out and helped us and given us feedback too, because not everybody is able to get into officiating and learn the right way to do it right away. So I think that, you say we're the three geniuses, and I think we have worked hard at what we do. But we've also been really lucky to receive the feedback. And like these guys have said, the words of wisdom from really, really good mentors, and they've taught us how to do things the right way. And we've taken that advice and put it with our work that we've put in. And so far we're leading us down some pretty good roads, and we've been able to have some good experiences, and are hoping to lead the next group of officials that are trying to look to do the same thing. And something that I kind of believe in with my own coaching philosophy is success is a product of your culture. And we've just been blessed, like in our association too, to be surrounded by guys that love what they're doing and guys that always want to get better. And when you surround yourself with people that want to do that, really good things are going to come out of it.
yeah, you're right. And we started that organization from ground zero, and now we're doing some really good things. And I love our partnership with the Arrowhead. I feel like that's one of the best moves that we've ever made, was to collaborate with them, and that might lead to more collaboration down the road too. And you always have to be collaborative in this business. Like the development of a pipeline. We have to have a pipeline, kind of like a freshman team. Your freshman team is the pipeline for the high school, JV, and varsity. The varsity team's going to steal freshmen away if they're really good. And that's a good thing. You don't want to keep people at ground zero forever. At some point in time, they got to, leave the nest. And we have plenty of people doing that right now.
Yeah.
I love our mentoring program that we're doing at Boston. I'm sure you guys have seen some things on that where we have.
That's been awesome to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody doing two guys or gals doing the JV game, and a veteran official stays down for the JV game. And, Randy Gillen, shout out to the Boston AD. He's been very supportive, and he has to budget for that. It costs him an extra $65 a night, to pay for that. And that's something he does because he believes in what we're doing. So I'm going to try and see if we can maybe get one more school to do that next year. And then we'll have two sites, and we'll need more officials to help out with that. But I'm going to have a kid playing in high school. So, my time doing varsity games is going to be cut in half. So that's why we got to have more young people filtering through the system. Because at some point in time, that's going to be you three. You'll be there at some point. And I know how you guys are. No, not right away, Brian. At some point. I said at some point. in a couple
in the
years.
near future, for sure.
In the near future, yeah.
Yep.
So,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Cole, do you have any other pieces that you want to share, Cole, before we wrap things up?
I think the last thing I'll say is that for people looking to move up from JV to varsity or varsity to college, one thing I was told a long time ago by a coach was all the work you put into something only gives you that opportunity to do the next thing. And if you don't succeed at that, it's not a guarantee. Success at the next level is never a guarantee. So stay hungry and keep working hard. So.
Yeah, and one last piece that I received, it kind of goes hand in hand with that, was from Mark Schlieder, and we were all at the same camp, and you might remember this too. And we were kind of just getting into the varsity scene and moving up, and he's like, guys, when you get out on the floor, like no matter what the circumstance, he said, you got to think that you're the best damn official out there. From the standpoint of, when you get that next opportunity, everybody wants to move up and everybody wants to take another step. But when you get out there, you got to trust in the work that you've done, and you got to be confident in what you're doing. And how do you build that confidence? How do you go into a game with that mentality? You go in knowing that you love what you do. You're working with people that are working just as hard as you are. And if you can have that mentality going into those sometimes tough opportunities, when when you make a step up, you're putting yourself out there, but be confident in what you're doing. And if you have, like you said earlier, Cole, you're here to have fun, you love what you do, you're going to have successful outcomes when you're presented with those opportunities, for sure.
Here's a funny Mark Schluter story. Mark Schluter, Ken Welter, and Jeff Hartle were all at camp in the Dells together. And Mark Schluter comes up to me at camp and he goes, "Hey, Brian, Dave Timmerman is going to retire." Dave Timmerman worked with Ken and Jeff when the thing switched over from 2-person to 3, long time ago, in many galaxies far, far away. And Mark said, should I work with those guys? Am I good enough to do that? And I said, you need to do that. Yes, that would be a really smart move on your part, Mark, to do that. Yes.
And that's so funny too, because now a lot of, obviously, people are aware of those 3 guys, but even Mark at that time is asking you, do you think I'm good enough, Brian?
The answer was yes.
Yeah. But to be confident, to be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to take a chance on this because, I think like we said, you put in the work to be in that position to take advantage of that opportunity. And he did, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's worked out pretty good for all 3 of those guys. I mean, they're some of the best in the area. You talk to any coach and love the work that those guys do. And that's going to be the same thing that people are going to say about you 3 too. And people already do say that. You guys need to know that. People say lots of really good things about the 3 of you. I hear a lot. So I think
you got anything, Brian? Words of wisdom, or are we ready to wrap things up here?
I think the one other piece that I would offer is trying to minimize your amount of time that you get wrapped up with social media and officiating. I think social media can be a really detrimental thing. I like Huddle. I like that we have a very safe place that's internal within our own framework where we can police each other and we can be accountable to, if you want to disagree with somebody's block charge play, you do it in a certain manner. I think the gloves come off on social media, and I think that really offends officials. And I think it chases them away.
When was the last time that you saw and this is an officiating group on Facebook? Excellent job by this crew working this game, or nice work by these 3 working this semifinal game. It's always, did they do this right? Are they for sure
Mhm.
supposed to be there? There's too much envy, jealousy, and arrogance in this community. And there's no room for it. There's no room for it in any part of any sport, but yet social media has created it. It just
Right.
has.
And that's why I think if we can just, do our best to just kind of minimize that, I think that makes officiating so much
Mhm.
better.
It
And
does indeed.
we have to be accountable to each other, and the more affirmations than it's just like Cade and Kent, you are stewards of education, and Cole, you're going to be in customer service oriented business. I mean, being a doctor, you have to tell people really bad things sometimes. You can still do it in a manner that is dignified and respectful, even if you have to deliver some bad news. And sometimes we have to take high doses of that in officiating, and we need to do a better job of that, I think. So I think that's a good thing to end on. And we always like to say, we all hear the word "and one" in some capacity, and you can't have an "and one" if there's no foul, right?
Correct.
You also can't have an "and one" without the original basket going in.
Yes.
So the "and" gives you the one. So
It needs
kind
to
of
all, it has to all come together at the same
it
time.
has to all come together, and you just hear it all the time. So great job. I enjoyed our conversation, and thanks, Kent, for setting this one up. And I hope you weren't biased with bringing the community of Darlington together here, but
No, I was. I'll be honest. So
is it the Red Robins, right? That's
the Red Birds.
the Red Birds.
Red
Okay,
Birds.
Red Bird.
Yep.
The Red Birds.
So the mighty Red Birds. Yep. But thanks again to Cole and Cade for coming on. I think this was some good advice that you guys gave, and like Brian said, we had some really good discussion tonight again, as we always do on our And One podcast, and hopefully some people can take things away from these episodes that we do, and hope everybody has a good week going into officiating this week and going into the holidays and tournaments. And before you know it, it'll be 2023 already. So,
Yikes.
Yeah. But thanks everybody for tuning in and listening this week. And hopefully everybody has a great holiday break, and we'll see you guys in January.
Have a great night.